uko salama umeamka vizuri. It's another Friday. It's been a great week. Friday ndio hii sasa hivi. It's our last show for the week and I hope you are happy and ready for it. Kuna wangona meweza kuamka mapema zaidi. Thank you so much for waking up joining us this morning. It's a Sheria Wiki edition of the 8th of April 2022. Na leo tumekuwa tukizungumzia candidates ambao wamekuja kuweza kuomba kura yako. We're trying to give them an opportunity to speak their agenda for you so they can get to understand more what they stand for. We brought you governors, we brought you many more senators, and we're bringing you presidents. Na tumeanza na marais, tumeanza na marais wawili tayari. We're going to go for the rest as well, even as we are towards the August general elections, so that you can have an opportunity to make a decision that is informed on the agendas that are going to present before you. Leo tuko na mheshimiwa Jimmy Wanjigi na atatuambia ni lipi ambalo ameweza kulipangia nchi. Is he a TADOS? Is he the proverbial TADOS? And is he going to disrupt the presidential landscape that has been largely rumored to be, largely spoken about it being a two-race affair? But you're having a TADOS that coming in. So atatuambia kama utaona kwamba atatosha kuwa farasi ya kuweza kusumbua ile ulingo wa kisiasa, basi tunaweza kuwa na mazungumzo na wewe. We'll have a conversation as usual. Itafika mahali ambapo tutaweza kufungua bunge la mwenyeji. Bunge la mwenyeji inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza, pia kupiga simu kwenye studio na kuweza kuchangia yale mada ambayo tutakuwa tunazungumzia. You can call in and let us know where you're doing. Lakini kama kawaida, when you join in, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And after you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to broadcast. This is the tackle, the 8th of February of April 2022. Lakini kama kawaida, lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu tukirudi basi na kuja kuwapa salamu zenu. Haya, tuombe. Mheshimiwa Mighty Father, come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be here this morning. We thank you for this conversation. Even as we speak to the nation, may they edify the fabric of this country. Even the tackler joining us, may you meet them at the point of individual needs. For we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Haya, nimeona kuna wangwana mamka hapa tayari mapema chumba Kiptoian when you're watching from down under Australia. These are the aspirants. Mungu later continue morning team tackle tuning in from Covent, United Kingdom. Good to be part of this morning Sheria Wiki edition. Asante sana Chamugen Elias Lagat. Good morning to tackle. Good morning to you. Daniel, good morning. Murivo Unedovi. Good morning Geza. Good morning to you sir. Arisa contractors following from Giganjo Madhari Wadin coming MCA. Korekiwa Masi. Good morning Jora tuned in from Kayole Embakasi Central. Asante sana Richard Usodama Ekwaro, Kabeta Barracks wako ndani. Asante Kimboi, Peter Kipkwet. Good morning Mr. Bitok following the tackle live at Kese Sigilai. DK, good morning. Good morning to you sir. Vincent Chesire, good morning tackle. Good morning to you. Lennox Kosi, good morning. Hope you're doing well. When you join, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us, and after like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to broadcast. Haya, tulipa madeni kidogo. Rex Roofing nakupa nafasi ya kuweza kupata vifaa safi zaidi ya kuweza kufanya roofing. Best roofing solutions comes from Rex Roofing. Rex Roofing, distributors of quality roofing materials, quality roofing shingles, stone coated tiles, UPVC, water harvesting gutters. And you keep asking, is water safe that is harvested using the Rex Roofing water harvesting gutters? Yes, 100%. UPVC water harvesting gutters ensure that you can consume your water 100% safe. But also it depends on what you put your roof on. If you use Rex Roofing products, then you get a best opportunity to ensure that you harvest your water for your domestic use 100% safe. And we're giving you two kinds of guarantees. One is a workmanship guarantee of 10 years. This is what we're telling you. If you buy from us and we get to roof your house using roofing Rex Roofing shingles or Rex Roofing stone coated tiles, we're giving you a workmanship guarantee of 10 years. That anything happens to your roof in 10 years, we shall be there to ensure that your roof is as clean as it was on the first day. And we're giving you a 50 years product guarantee. This is what we're telling you. I don't know where you'll be in the next 50 years, but I can guarantee you that your roof will still be there with you, looking as fresh as it was on the first day. Here, why should you be in a dirty place when you could be in a clean space? Clean space, cleaners ensures that you are in a very clean space, whether it's a commercial space or in the domestic space. Unaweza kuwatembelea pale Current Professional Center first floor, nambari ambayo unaweza wapigia iko pale kwenye screen, alafu basi mambo yako yanaweza kuwa shwari zaidi. Domestic cleaning, fumigation, landscaping and gardening, unaweza kupata pale clean space.co.ke. Wapigie simu nambari 0790067942 ama watembelee pale kwenye Current Professional Center first floor, Current Road, Nairobi. Rex Roofing watembele pale Manali Road, Manali Court first floor. Ukisema tumkutuma basi, we're still giving you 3% off on all selected products. Ukinunua pale Rex Roofing utakupa 3% off courtesy of the tackle. Kimbia pale usema tumkutuma, alafu mambo yako inaweza kuwa shwari zaidi. Make Valencia Murgor, good morning Jira. Good morning to you. Angela Marindich tuned in from Optiven Diaspora. Asante sana to Optiven. Franklin Koech, your bride, good morning. Asante sana Mungai Polo. Barikiwa pia ndogo salimia 007 James Bond hapo. Well done drop. Good morning watching from my bed. Tony T. Sankara, good morning Bitok. Good morning Mr. Wanjigi. Haya, asante sana mheshimiwa, good morning.
Good morning,
It's a pleasure to see you.
Asante. It's good to be
here. It's a pleasure to have you this morning. Very early in the morning, but you're looking very fresh. Fresh as a lily.
Yes. We have clear minds and a good spirit. You know, when you put God ahead, there's nothing that doesn't give you a smile.
Asante, I can see clearly when I grow up and smile like you.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure to have you this morning. We've been trying to reach out to you, and thank you so much for honoring our invite. I think uliona kuna vijana walikuwa nakuulizia pale Twitter. Where is Wanjigi? Wanjigi yuko wapi? Hajaonekana kwenye tako. Kwa sababu hapa ndio mazungumzo ya wananchi yanafanyika. This is where you get to speak to the nation, you speak to the citizens of this country, and they get to interrogate your ideas and your agendas. One on one, live. This is the tackle, and you get tackled. Ukifinywa pia usiogope.
Usiogope, unajua wananitanga fearless.
Unaitwa James Bond.
You fear nothing. Yes.
All right. I'll give you an opportunity. This you come here. I'll give you an opportunity first of all to speak to Kenyans, introduce yourself. Wewe ni nani? Umetoka wapi? Unajua a few years ago ulikuanga kama unajua where I come from, there's something that I speak about. A giant that used to exist someday, somewhere. We've never seen it, but we don't talk about it. And we fear it. Jigi. Alikuwa anasema, huyu mungwana ni nani huyu? Tunasikia ndiye anavuruta strings pale nyuma. Maybe Kenyans have had an opportunity to now listen to you finally and get to understand that beyond you doing what you've done for many years, you have an interest in this nation and you have a vision for them. But even before you go to that, maybe you can introduce yourself at a personal level. Wewe ni nani?
I'll gladly do so. I am a humble Kenyan, born and brought up here. I must say, I have been among the, let me say, not uncomfortable Kenyans my entire life. I have schooled here and went abroad to Canada, where I did my final schooling, and have continued here. Local universities where I'm doing a master's currently. I believe I have been a successful businessman, ventured broadly into a wide arena of business both in Kenya and in Africa specifically. And I must say I feel very blessed to be a Kenyan. Very blessed that I've been born here. Very blessed to be among the spirit that has always been Kenya. Because we are a great people. And I would not have wanted to be born anywhere else other than this good land of ours. We are truly a blessed nation.
Are you sure?
Oh yes.
Kuna watu walisema eri wauze nchi kila mtu apewe yake.
No. That is unfortunate. That is primarily because of leadership. But not that we as a people, 50 million of us, are not great. You know, this country and its borders were created not by us. It was created in 1883 by the British, who came and drew a line and put all our communities together. But they found a very blessed land here. And we thank them for putting all of us with our diversity in one box. Because I am telling you, we have potential to be so great and reposition ourselves in the world like no other. Our challenge has been our governance. Our challenge has been the various challenges we've had of leadership ever since we got independence. And this is what we must address. And this is now no greater time than ever to address that singular issue, where we go from here as a nation. Yes.
Okay. All right. And I want to remind you that we are live both on Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, Gerald Bitok, and also on YouTube, Gerald Bitok as well. So you can join us on either platforms that you are active on, and you can also join us on Twitter as we're going to share very short clips that are going to come up very shortly. Mheshimiwa, hiyo ni wewe. Tumejua your background and all that. Are there some of the things that have inspired you about this country? That's something that you would pick and say when you think about this, about Kenya? I mean, it lights you up.
Yes, the people. I can tell you, you know, I had an experience many years when I came back from school and I started my first business. One of my first businesses was to collect garbage in this good city. had started with a good friend of mine, a company called Bins Limited. I was doing garbage collection. And I always recall a very young man who lived very near here in Kibra. His name was John. He was the company messenger. John, for the period I knew him and worked for me, never ever missed work.
Never.
He opened the office at 6 a.m. and left no sooner than 6 p.m. He never missed work. There's one time he got sick, and I came to see him in Kibra. It was probably one of my first times to come to Kibra. And when I saw his humble, very, very humble home, one-bedroom home with a dirt floor, I asked myself, this man comes to work very clean every day. He smiles. He walks to work. I said to myself, this is truly the Kenyan spirit. That even in all this disparity and inequality, that we still get up believing we have a purpose in life, and we smile, we carry on our duty without flinching, and move forward with such a great spirit of achievement. That young man, when he retired, we made sure we had built him a beautiful home where he came from, out in Homa Bay, and you know, where even now he could flush his own toilet inside the house. And I can tell you, the most touching thing was that is the spirit of Kenya. That is the spirit in the length and breadth of this nation. No matter what the challenges,
we still get up
and try. We still get up and pray to God. We still believe that tomorrow will be better than it is today. I can tell you that's a challenge and a spirit that you will not find in many nations in this world. We don't give up. That is the greatness of our people and the greatness of who we are. And it must be harnessed. Gerald, we are joking. This is untapped potential that must be harnessed for the greatness of which we are as a people. You must remember, this is the cradle of mankind. This is where mankind began.
Yes.
So let us make sure that we harness that belief. Make sure that we make the world know that Kenya is the greatest nation on this earth. And we can only do that with a directional and focused leadership.
Okay.
Wacha hii selfishness that we've seen for far too long. Yes.
All right. So there are things that inspire you, that when you look at, you light up, as Jimmy Wanjigi. What are some of the things that when you look at in this country, it bothers you and disturbs you?
Self-serving and self-centered leaders. I can tell you. Because in all this spirit that I was talking about, leadership has been wanting for far too long. We see too many times and too many cases where leaders pretend they are selling us pancreas to our lives that are going to help us. But they really are just self-serving. It's just about them. You know, we are founded on the basis of sacrifice. There are men and women who decided at one time, and I can tell you this was a decision that was made 100 years ago today, 1922, when they decided that Kenya is no longer going to be governed by foreigners. That this land has a spiritual connotation, and that our land is meant for us, the African people. They got up selfless, out of experiences, out of the information, and they decided they are going to start a movement called Kikuyu Central Association. That was the birth of the liberation movement in this country. That led eventually to Mau Mau and Kao, and eventually our Uhuru. Those people got up and said that for the majority of Kenyans, there's nothing we are not willing to do, including our lives, sacrificing our lives for the greatness of Kenya. We got independence. There are those in the second liberation who clearly came out and said that for the greatness of Kenya, we did not replace a colonialist, Muzungu, for Muafrika colonialist. And we are no longer going to take the dictates of an African colonialist. And they sacrificed their lives, length and breadth of this nation, to give us the liberation and the freedom that we have today, especially in multipartyism, our second liberation. Those are patriots. Those were leaders that had focus beyond themselves. What we are witnessing today are characterizations which are uncultural to us as a Kenyan people, as an African people, and as just basic human beings. You cannot get up to be self-serving in leadership. You cannot be thinking about your own stomach. When you have today 63 out of every Kenyan hungry, as per the Kipra report. You know, I've been saying it's 53. Kipra has updated that this week. And they're literally saying that since 2013, in 2013, out of every 100 Kenyan, 38 was sleeping without food.
Wow.
Today they are saying it is 63. Double.
Wow.
How do leaders sleep at night? How do they? When you're a leader, the people who you are supposed to be serving are like the children in your home.
Yes.
How do you sleep at night? When 63 out of 100 Kenyans are struggling to have food that night to live. That is a most painful thing. And all we see are people worrying about which part of the cake they are going to have for themselves, even in terms of leadership.
Yes.
Which part, which kikundi, which leg of the goat is going to be theirs to fly a flag. This must change, Gerald. This selfishness must change. Self-centered leadership must change. We have now got to get into what we call servant leadership.
Right.
It must be purely about the people. Why is it today that everybody wants to be a leader because they believe that's where money is, to be a leader? What happened?
Yes.
That was a place where there was no money to be made.
It was a place of sacrifice.
It was a place of sacrifice. You see that all over the world. You don't get into leadership to make money.
Yes.
You actually sacrifice, hoping that you are creating an environment for the greater good of mankind and even those that will follow you for generations to come. How is it you have, I mean, we are witnessing it everywhere. Everybody wants to be, whether it's an MCA, a governor, an MP, because there's some little funds there that they think they can dip their hand into. That is the place where money is. Okay. Government is not, that's poor people's money. There's no money there for anyone to take. No.
It's money to serve.
It's money to serve.
All right, okay. We move on very quickly now to the business of the day. We start with the state of the nation. That's quite it's mind provoking to hear that from you. The things that inspire about the nation and the things that keep you awake at night about this country. And now we have a nation that we build every single day, and in that state, there's somewhere that it is at every single time. This morning, the state is somewhere. It's a state of the nation, and that's why we want to start off with this conversation. And some of the things that happened the other day or yesterday was the budget reading, 3.3 trillion budget reading. Media houses and many pundits have termed it as an heavy burden and last heavy burden on Kenyans. I don't know, what's your feeling about the budget reading that happened yesterday, the things that have been budgeted for, especially at this point and time? That you have, what do you think? What do you think about
that? Is a very good question, and it's very good that I had this timely interview. The budget is the following. I describe it as pain, pure, unadulterated pain. This government is the bane of deficit, of debt, of fiscal distress, and the bane of moving millions of Kenyans into poverty. It has destroyed business, it has destroyed agriculture, it has even destroyed the very essence of patriotism, because you have removed in very many Kenyans their dignity to life. There is no difference in this budget at all to subsequent budgets that this regime has had for the last 9 years. It is pain, pain, pain. There's no difference. They have no ideas. They have taken us on wanton spending without return. And now we, as the sovereign, have to pay for it. To give you a summation, They are saying that they are expecting a revenue of 2.1 trillion. I can assure you they will not get that 2.1 trillion. And even in that 2.1 trillion, you have debt to be repaid of 1.4 trillion.
1.4 trillion.
1.4 trillion. Of that 1.4 trillion, 890 or so is interest on debt.
Wow.
890 billion. 890 billion. Do you know how much money is going to counties and salaries of government? About 800 billion.
The current expenses.
That interest on debt alone is more than what goes to counties and salaries of the whole government in 1 year.
Wow.
Interest alone. This is the kind of scorecard this government is showing us. And since we are the sovereign, government is you and I, Gerald, and all of us who are listening.
Yes.
That debt is us. There are conservative estimates that are talking about debt being something like, of every 100 shillings, 60 shillings is going to debt or revenue.
Yes.
I can assure you I don't believe that figure. I believe it is more like 75 shillings of every 100.
75 shillings.
Yes.
Disappears.
Yes.
Wow.
That's why the deficit is so big. You have a deficit of over 1 trillion. This almost 1 trillion, this financial year. Now, and this is trusting their figures. I don't trust their figures anymore. I don't trust their figures. I don't trust the figures that this government has put out for years. And I can tell you that in that deficit is accumulation of a very simple mathematics. That if your revenue, you're getting the 100 shillings, 75 is going to debt. You then need 30 shillings to go to the counties. You need 50 shillings to go for salaries. You're accumulating this deficit. You need another 30 shillings for OPEX. So you're talking about the 850 is now accurate, because if you count 75, you take 30, that is a minus 5.
Yes.
You take 55, you take 50, that's minus 55. You then take another 30 for OPEX, is minus 85. That is the deficit that is being requested here in the books. Right?
Yes.
To supplement operations, salaries, and county money, which actually in the PFM law is against the law.
Wow.
You cannot borrow for recurrent expenditure. But they are doing it, and they've been doing it for years. Now, that is the deficit. So really the debt is 75 shillings for every 100 of revenue going to debt. Now, that money is just an accumulation of more and more debt. And at this rate, we'll probably be reaching, at the end of the year, a situation where 100 shillings of revenue is all going towards debt.
That's 100%.
That's 100%.
Wow.
We are in such trouble. You cannot believe it. You cannot believe it. And where do they get this money to supplement? We are the sovereign. Life becomes more and more expensive for us because they come back to us to pay that money. We are the sovereign. They tax us. And they'll keep taxing us. The cost of living goes up because of it. We have to pay that debt. There's no way a government is broke and you and I have got money. We are the sovereign.
If the government is broke,
we all bankrupt us. That is their duty. They come to bankrupt us. So I see people complaining. We have allowed them. We have allowed this government to do this to us. And we have allowed these legislators to pass this pain onto us. That is the reality.
So where do we pin this on? All this burden, all the problems that we are talking about. Almost 100% of revenue collected going into debt repayment. Where do we pin this? Where did the rain start beating us as a nation?
It started in the first term of this regime.
Okay.
I'm very categorical. There was wanton destruction of this economy. We had accumulated the most prolific infrastructure debt you've ever imagined. You imagine that in these 9 years, this government has spent 17 trillion. Money that we've never imagined being spent in a nation over 9 years. And yet we are poorer than they found us. That money has not benefited us. They started that wanton destruction at foundation. Foundation. Because what has cumulatively happened ever since after the first 4 to 5 years has been we have been paying interest on debt that was taken that cannot repay itself. I'll give you a classic example. You have SGR. SGR is an accumulation of debt because this is the biggest project, infrastructure project, in fact, the biggest project this country has done ever since independence. The biggest. It is 600 billion. 400 billion between Mombasa and Nairobi, and another 185 from Nairobi to a place called Dukamoja, somewhere out near Suswa. 600 billion shillings has gone to what I describe a big white elephant. We are using our traditional money from the little things that we do in this country, selling viazi, selling maize, selling shoes, selling mitumba, and the taxes collected from them to pay that 600 billion. Because that SGR project is not generating enough income to pay its debt and to run its operations. I can assure you, the government has been very shy to give us the contract. We want 2 contracts transparently exposed to us. The first is a construction. The second is the purchase of rolling stock, which are the wagons. The third is the contract for operating that SGR. I can tell you just on the operation of SGR, the operation alone, that contract costs Kenyans 32 million shillings per day.
30 million Kenyan shillings
Mombasa,
per day.
Nairobi.
Per day.
Per day.
24 hours.
24 hours. And I can tell you there's no return, full cargo, full passenger of more than 5 million shillings. So every day we are making a loss of 27 million shillings just operating that rail.
Yes.
And you saw yesterday the budget is giving another 18 billion for capital expenditure of the same white elephant. This railway, SGR, from Nairobi to Dukamoja, the train did not travel more than 1 month when it was opened. 1 month. There was rolling stock that moved to Dukamoja and then it stopped. This was all the way back in 2018. Since that time, no rolling stock has been on that SGR.
Wow.
So you have 200 billion idle chuma ambao inaota jua.
Wapi huko? We need to do a tour.
From Nairobi, you need to do a tour. You should see it kwanza from there. You want to cry. Okay? 200 billion chuma ya reli inaota jua tu. The rail traveled only for 1 month. To show you that this was a complete white elephant from beginning to end. I can talk about SGR with authority. Kwa sababu, mimi ndio nilianzisha.
That is where I was going.
Mimi ndio nilianzisha.
You've been rumored to have been the architect.
Yes, nilianzisha. Unajua mimi.
So ulikuwa na agenda gani?
Biashara. I was not in politics. Nilikuwa nafanya biashara. And after the 2007 disaster of an election, where we had even here next door to you, Kibra, here people are removing rail. I think you recall our neighbors, Uganda, and everybody used to complain that their goods are not getting there. We said maybe it's about time we revamped this 110-year-old rail that was brought here by the British. And we put forward a proposal with the same company ambao imefanya hii construction in 2008, 2009 to the government. At the time, if you recall, tulikuwa na some concession that was made to RVR. And RVR were failing in that concession. So we said, let us revamp this rail. The proposals that we did, which led to a technical and a feasibility and a technical study, were private, Gerald. Yani, tutafanya sisi bila hela za serikali.
Private capacity.
And I can tell you the first proposal I recall we tabled was from Mombasa to Malaba of no more than 55 billion.
Really?
55 billion.
Mombasa
to Malaba.
55?
55 billion.
Let's have it again, straight up. Mombasa to Malaba, 55 billion.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, all we were doing was widening to SGR.
The MGR.
What we were not doing, ni ile ambao umeona ati inapelekwa huko juu. Put up on a platform. Okay? And the reason for putting on a platform, walisema ati you know, it's going to knock down animals in the Savo. Unaweka juu. The speed of this SGR is the same speed as the previous railway diesel engine. It's the same diesel engine. Okay?
Yes.
And you've never had the old rail at Imegonga Elephant hapo Savo. Never. So these are excuses to raise money. So 55 billion, Mombasa to Malaba. How it became a project of 380 billion from Mombasa to Nairobi was the biggest shocker to some of us. Biggest shocker. So we said, apana. When the new government came in, we said, you know, fine, it's money that has been secured for the Chinese. Lakini instead of putting it there, why don't we do this? Some of us had the fortunate experience of participating in the Thika Road construction. And anyone will tell you in economics, if you want to stimulate an economy, stimulate with roads. Because during construction and after, you have got a stimulus. During construction, you're using a lot of local labor, a lot of local material. And after construction, you have closed the gap between markets. So I suggested, instead of putting all that money in SGR, tutengeneze hii barabara from Mombasa to Malaba. That was roughly a cost of $2 billion, 200 billion. Hii ambayo tumetumia from Syokimau to Dukamoja. We could have done an 8-lane like Thika Road. From Mombasa
to Malaba.
Wow. Would have changed the economy of all the communities in that section.
Along the road.
From Mswahili, Mtaita, Mkamba, Kikuyu up.
All the way to Mluya Busia.
All the way to Mluya Busia. Okay? You stimulate in about 10 sections, right? Where you get local labor, local materials. So it's a continuous stimulus during and after. But I'll tell you the most important thing, Gerald, because this is where an economy is stimulated greatly. When you close markets, you raise real estate values because now it becomes habitable, right? Economic activity is increased. Thika Road, for example, before, because that was the first superhighway, before the construction of that road, an acre of land was no more than 500,000 shillings.
Along Thika Road.
Along Thika Road. Okay. At the time I was saying this, an acre of land had become about 10 to 12 million shillings. Today, Gerald, unajua ni pesa ngapi?
Ngapi?
Hapo Ruiru hapo kwa hii highway. 100 million shillings an acre.
Wow. 100 million.
That is what a good road does to stimulating economic growth for everybody. Right? Thika Road was done because it was at the time the most densely populated road traffic-wise. So now we expanded to Mombasa Road. You can imagine what would have happened if you have created a 24-hour corridor. Sasa ikaja, watu wengine wakafikiri, maybe because the cost of a road is known per kilometer, lakini watu hawajui cost of rail, maybe there is a different motive ambao ilikuwa natokea to build an SGR. After all, let us be sincere here. Even the meter gauge railway that was built by the British was a continual loss throughout its existence. It was a loss to the British when they were running it. It was a loss to Kenyans when Kenya Railways was running it. So it was never about a return that you could ever justify. That's why we wanted to do it as a project, private. We had an expectation on a return on investment of something like 7 years. It was very simple. We were putting the rail. There are about 7 to 8 major uses: wheat, maize, fuel oil, palm oil. And the rolling stock was going to be managed privately by one of those farms that was going to farm it out, bring rolling stock, and we were going to get real estate value back. So it was a very good business, private business model. Government and us, you and I, did not have to pay taxation. That debt, 600 billion, tunalipa. Tunalipa. So when people start asking what is the cost of their living, that passenger railway levy is in nearly every single aspect of our bills. It is in our petrol. We are charged railway levy. Okay? It is in nearly every aspect.
Whether you're using it or not.
Whether you use it or not. Iko hapo.
That is
So
Japan
people
heritage.
should not ask many questions. This government has put us in this mess. There's no, the buck stops right there. Nowhere else. The buck stops with the government.
With the government.
Yes.
All right. Now, before I go to the last question on the economy, now on the SGR issue, it has been you had an opportunity to speak about it even when they were putting it up in 2013. The new government came in and said we were going to go on with the plan, but it was going to cost Kenyans a lot of money. Why didn't you save us, sir? You should have saved us on the first things. I said, guys, you're being ripped off.
You see, I was dealing with good friends, and as I think there's been very clear history, I had a big part to play in the formation of the Uhuru government. And I was talking to friends. And when it became clear that they did not want to listen, we had an immediate fallout. Because one of the principles of which I assisted in helping this generational government, because there was a generational change of power, was that if the country saves them, because if you recall at the time, there was a big debacle, there was a big issue of ICC,
Yes.
that should the country save them, they shall do everything they can to save our nation and lead us to national greatness. When you start making decisions such as this in SGR, you know you're being led to national disaster, not national greatness. And because they were friends, I was not about to be public. I divorced myself from the issue and wanted to be remembered clearly as away from that sort of wanton destruction of economy, and I opted out of any participation. And I said history will judge. We did educate a few people. We did educate some MPs and told them, please, this is coming to Parliament. These are the facts. And there were some voices at the time. I remember the good voices of people like Alfred Kiter, who came out from a lot of the education that we had given them. And they were vocal. And my friends were not happy with the fact that I seemed to have been toboring to a wider Toboa Siri. So I decided, let me keep quiet. Time will be the judge. And I think we are now at that time where Kenyans are paying the cost. Yeah, very serious cost. And I did choose eventually to speak because when this wanton destruction went on, because it did not stop there, I called my friend Raila Amolo Odinga all the way back in 2014, 2015. We had continually been friends. And I said, you know, I think I have developed the template for the next election. And this template ni wizi. Hii serikali ya Uruto imekuwa ya wizi. And the eventuality is that Kenyans are going to feel poorer in 2017 because of the wanton theft that's going on. So we started raising some questions, I think early in 2015.
At Capitol Hill.
At Capitol Hill, I think we had press conferences, several places, including my restaurant called Caramel at the time. And we raised awareness to the foreign community. We kept the press aware. And even apart from SGR, I think you recall a time when we asked about Eurobond.
Yes.
I think that was another one that I think Kenyans need to understand. And Gerald, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring that to remind Kenyans. Because
bring it up.
I feel the media fails us in many, many regards. They don't bring the issues at hand. Eurobond is a scandal, is theft that we have seen like no other in this nation. Maybe second to maybe second to SGR. The government in 2014 said that they were going to borrow 300 billion shillings domestically. And that was in the budget. And they decided that instead of borrowing domestically, they came up with an argument that they are going to free up domestic borrowing so that you and I have access to credit from the local banks. And as such, they will borrow a Eurobond. I can tell you, because those were my friends, they were still my friends at the time.
Yes.
I was very against that purchase of Eurobond from outside. I said the foreign exchange risks were too great. But they went ahead. And they borrowed the first 2 billion through Chase Morgan Stanley, US bank. I can tell you, ndugu yangu, when we scrutinized the same year, that $2 billion, we found, yes, $1 billion ilikuja kwa Kenya.
1 billion.
Yes, what happened? 1 billion, 650 billion shillings of that went to $650 million of that went to pay a syndicated loan Kibaki had taken. Barclays Bank. So that went direct payment. 350 came directly to the exchequer account. So he said, okay, hiyo ni mzuri. He said, but what happened to the other 1 billion? This was where the first whistleblowing came.
Yeah.
So we asked my friend, I asked my friend, Raila Odinga, that I think we need to question this because something is funny here. I had a very good friend, late friend called Jacob Juma, who comes up and he tells me, Jimmy, something is very funny with these accounts. I said, why? He said, if you look at the government quarterly financial reports, they say they have borrowed 300 billion domestic, but they have taken the Eurobond also. So if you look, they have borrowed domestic 300 billion. This 300 billion outside doesn't seem to be reflecting. So let us raise questions. So we wrote to the then Minister of Finance, Bwana Rotich. Raila wrote and said, we want transparency to account for this money you have borrowed. As we wrote, they took another sum of 1 billion later in that year called tap sales. So we said, fine. Rotich, in his magnanimity, because we had made a lot of hue and cry, said, I am going to put all these details in a website.
Okay.
So we are going to download all the details, how we borrowed, how the transfers were done. And sure enough, he did. So we were very happy. So the 1 billion, I'm telling you, where 650 went to syndicated bank, they showed us a SWIFT transfer copy. These 650 went to Barclays Bank, Ireland. 350, a SWIFT transfer from Chase Morgan Stanley, went to Exchequer account, Central Bank. That's the government account. We saw it, a SWIFT transfer. So he said, okay, that's very good. That's $1 billion. Hii ingine $1 billion, iko wapi? So he shows us another $1 billion from Citibank tap sales, which they took later. And that one, he shows us a transfer from Citibank all the way to Exchequer account. He said, okay, after hiyo tick. But there is a 1 billion here, Chase Morgan Stanley. Iko wapi, that's missing. Show us the same SWIFT transfer. Then they say, oh, yes, we held, the Chase Morgan Stanley held the money from May to September, and they transferred the money. He said, very good, show us the SWIFT transfer. Gerald, maajabu.
Yeah, Musa.
They show us the transfer, but they redact it. Wanaweka black.
Wow.
Black. I still have that today.
Mahali inaenda.
Mahali inaenda imewekwa black.
Okay.
So you see it has left the bank in New York. But
you
you
don't know
see where it has gone. We said, but we want to see it has come to Exchequer account. Do you know up until today, we have never seen that? The Auditor General, who insisted that he does an audit report, up until today, he has not produced that report of where that $1 billion is.
You have the documents?
This is now income.
Okay.
We're not even talking about expenditure yet. That is income. Incoming 1 billion up until today.
That's never arrived.
That is 100 billion shillings.
Wow.
That we are paying interest on and paying principal. It is the most expensive loan in our loan book.
Wow.
We have never seen an account of that 1 billion. That is incoming. Now on expenditure, maajabu. Where was this money spent? I tell you, my friend, Gerald, one day we shall all write an amazing book on this. You know, you must understand that government receives its money marupurupu.
Yes.
Kidogo kidogo. We pay taxes. They collect little money from us every week. Every 2 weeks they account. Iko namna hii exchequer account. So much from Kenya revenue. Little.
Yes.
When government receives money from donors, development money, it is also tied towards, let's say, a project like a road. It is paid per certificate. So the exchequer does not receive the money cash. This is probably the first time that the exchequer account had the capacity to get hundreds of billions cash. Namna hiyo has never happened in the history of Kenya. And I think there are some people who just could not see it coming into the account and not passing through their own personal accounts. And this is something I can assure you will one day be opened up. It has to be opened up because this is why, these are the reasons we are feeling the pain. This is why the rain is beating us every single day and will not stop until these things are dealt with. Gerald.
Wow.
Maajabu.
Hata nimeshtuka. So ngenipea hata shilingi 500 nipanguze nayo jasho.
Remember, Gerald,
nipanguze jasho.
We are selfless. We are selfless. Wewe uko na koti mzuri, uko na suti mzuri, unakaa mzuri. Kuna wale ambao hawana chochote. Leo jana usiku hakulala na chakula. Wewe unang'ara.
Lakini naweza kuwa nimevaa koti na sijakula. Unajua hii Nairobi wala watu tumevaa suti tunatembea njani wengi sana.
Wewe unang'ara vizuri sana.
Unajua naweza kuwa umeng'ara. Unajua hii Nairobi lazima ufiche aibu pia. Naweza kuwa unazunguka hapa na tumbo inanguruma. Unasikia gururu.
Hapo ni kweli.
Kumbe jamaa ako njaa. Unajua sasa zingine unaficha. Lakini sisi wote tunaumia. And how you've been speaking about that, you've painted a picture of a foundational problem that we've had, and looks it has never stopped.
Right.
But now while that goes on, you had yesterday the Minister of Finance, CS for Finance, Sheria Wiki. He said that the economy, and this is a conversation that has continued, even the President has spoken about it, on the growth of the economy. Yesterday, Minister CS for Finance, Sheria Wiki, told us that the economy has grown by 155%. Hizi manamba mnatoanga mwisho. Iko. 155%.
You know.
No, hapo unasema uchumi ni mbaya.
I laugh because I think these people, you know, there should be a way of charging people for telling lies. For telling lies. They are living in a fantasy world. I don't think you and I wake up to every day or go to sleep to every night.
Okay.
I have just given you a very clear picture that when this government took power, 38 of every 100 Kenyan could not find food. Today it is 63. These are their own government reports. Kipra is an arm of Serikali. So where is this growth that does not have jobs, does not have rising income, does not have food on the table? This must be in their minds. Maybe that's they are talking about their bank accounts, personal. But I can assure you,
they are talking about their own economy.
That is not the Kenya. That's their own economy. Okay. They must be separate to all of us. They must be. You know, in the same budget, he says per capita income has doubled. Gerald, do you believe in the last 1 year your income has doubled?
It has even doubled in losses, maybe.
Doubled in losses.
Maybe it's in reverse. I don't know.
yet more people are poor.
Yes.
So, you know, I think let's be sincere, right? I don't think you should take government figures, especially these government figures, with seriousness. Yeah? I think they've been telling a lie for far too long. And if they think I'm talking out of turn, yeah? Let the president, who promised the country that he was going to show us the SGR contract, let him table it. Tuone. See, those were his words. Atoboe.
Alete tuone. Ama utatoboa.
No.
Asipotoboa utatoboa.
Wacha mambo ya kutoboa, atulete hapa. That just tells you. Right? Because you've all allowed him to get away with it. Let him table that report here. Watu waone. Ndio tuseme yes, what this government says ni ukweli. And we can go on. The lies that have been told for far too long, yeah, are tragic. Because you see, you are affecting people's lives.
Yes.
Every day is alive for somebody. Okay? You do not destroy lives and keep telling us lies. This fantasy must end. And this is why some of us are very clear. We are talking about a movement called Itweka.
Yeah. Kabla janda kwa Itweka. Itweka iko inakuja. Itweka inakuja. Now, let's talk about the economy. What could you have done differently? President Jimmy Wanjigi, 2013, today is 2022. Rais mtukufu Jimmy Wanjigi, you are the one in the reins. What could you have done differently?
Well, I don't know whether you say could have done or will do.
Let's start with what could have done. Okay, what would you
will do?
Okay, what did you do different? What did you do differently about the issue of the economy?
Because when you talk about will do, in other words, that if we remove the last 10 years and talk about when Kibaki left power, Kibaki left us a very well-structured nation. We had a new constitution. We had a booming economy. I think we had almost reached we were at 7% growth rate.
Ya ukweli sasa mimi kama hii.
Good. If you remember, siju kama unakumbuka, maybe you were very young at the time.
No. Hey, but I was in this Nairobi. I was selling milk around.
There was a sense of feel good. People, if you were thinking Kenyans are smiling in this hardship, at that time they were smiling in happiness. There was such positive energy. People were feeling good about being Kenyan, being patriotic. We had a new constitution. People were looking forward to devolution. They were looking forward to a structure of growth. In fact, we used to say we are now on the runway about to take off. Right? All the digital leadership that was coming in, because you remember the time we had a msemo digital analog.
Tumetoka analog to
tumeenda digital. Sasa what we wanted as a younger generation coming to power, all they needed to do was tweak what Kibaki had laid down. But it seemed the intention was to completely uproot it and start afresh, or go back to analog of the most analog. So let me say, let's talk about what needs to be done from today, because that is where the challenge is. I can only talk so much because, a lot of what we want to do is bring it up in our manifesto. Na unaona kuna plagiarism mingi sana, unazungumza kitu unaona wengine
wanaichukua, unaona launch mbele yako,
unasema so we have to be a bit careful. The first thing we need to do, and it is something that we need to understand, is that this is no longer the government that everybody imagines that is talking about distribution. It's no longer about cutting up the pieces of a pot or a pie and distributing to Kenyans. It is about increasing this pie. It is about making this pie bigger and bigger.
So baking
a much bigger cake for the nation, and making sure there's a cake for everybody. That is where the challenge is. It is called boosting productivity. We must boost productivity. Because in productivity, you have growth, you have wealth, you have jobs. The second, which is fundamental, is that you must bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. There must be social mobility. This gap must be narrowed.
If not closed.
I mean, 63 of 100 Kenyans do not have food. This is 2022. We are not talking about the dark ages of 100 years ago when we lived like hunters and gatherers. This is 2022, when there are people who are struggling to find food. This is not the Kenya that was envisaged by our forefathers. We must bridge this gap. And I can tell you it's very basic. It starts from a child. A child. There was a very good show on KTN the other day. It was talking about infant nutrition. Right? The first 1,000 days of a child are the most important for brain formation. If you do not get a child that has proper nutrition in those 1,000 days, they have stunted brain growth. Stunted brain growth. So somebody of 35 with stunted brain growth is acting like they are maybe 15. So you have 2 million kids. You imagine over the last 1 year that in those 1,000 days, right, did not get basic proper nutrition. They have already been disenfranchised from the rest of us at that early age. Now, these are the social mobilities we need. We need to start at that level, right? It's that basic, okay? Because ndugu yangu, why should your child have proper nutrition? Na wengine hawana. And it's not difficult, right? Instead of spending money on SGR and a lot of these useless white elephants, all you needed to do was increase community health workers. Make sure that there is, I think they've taken an average of something like every home, every village, every homestead should have at least one community worker for every 200 people, right? So that they are able to go and visit them when they are, before they give birth and when they do, to make sure the child is nurtured, right? In those years. That's how basic it is.
1,000 days.
1,000 days. I'm just talking about one aspect. And I can tell you we can talk about this subject for a very long time about social mobility. The next is that we must get into our governance and efficiencies. Corruption cannot be a way of life. In fact, I had a friend who was telling me her two daughters were having a debate, and one was asking the elder daughter, what is corruption? And the elder daughter answered, that is the backbone of our economy.
Wow.
You know,
What a shame.
This is the biggest shame on earth. That is what we are known for. That has become, people have made it like it's our DNA. We must make a very clear effort to ensure that it is completely eradicated. And I'll give you a case in point. It's not rocket science. It's not. Corruption exists where you have face-to-face contact. Without it, it's very hard for it to exist. Reduce face-to-face. Why do you have to go physically to get a license for something, to get a passport for something? Today, we are in the information age. Everybody's got a phone and a smartphone. That, nearly everybody. Why are we not reducing face-to-face? Why is government a place to queue? Why? Government should be a place of efficiency, right? Reduce the bureaucracy and efficiency, increase efficiency. On our phone, with M-Pesa, Airtel money, we should be able to get every single thing that we need without meeting anybody, whether it's our passports, whether it is a license to run my mkokoteni business, assess license, assess tax. We should be able from our phone to do everything. We don't need to meet anybody. Just simple things like that. And we can go on. This is a subject we intend to roll out extensively in our manifesto. And then we must get into understanding efficiency. During the Kibaki regime, government was a place where there was something called performance contracts. You are a government officer. You have senior authority, senior responsibility. You must show within a particular period of time your performance vis-a-vis your mandate and your budget. Yes. I'll give you an confano because those things are not being done anymore. I am Minister of Roads. I say we have a target to do 1,000 kilometers of road this financial year. I need 100 billion shillings, for example. And I will make sure that those 1,000 kilometers of tarmac road are done. Okay? I am assessed on that performance. And I can tell you the competition was to do this. Do 1,200 kilometers of road, right? With the same 100 billion shillings. Right? So that in the next financial year, you're able to show that you are so efficient, you saved money, increased the kilometers, and on top of that, you can now ask, I can do 2,000 this year, the next year, and everybody, even Treasury will say, yes, you have shown capacity, right? You are able to roll it out. Yes, you get enough money now to do 2,000. That's how we operate in the private sector. You challenge your salesmen, your marketeers to meet targets. They meet targets and beyond. That person gets bonuses. That person gets more capacity, is given more strength to fulfill even better the following financial year. You never hear of that today. You never hear it of it being accounted. Government is about performance. It's not about talk, writing up endless documents. This is you're in the business of making sure that Kenyans, their Kenyan lives, right? right? I enhanced that Kenyans prosper. Where is this measurement? Where is it of? These are simple templates that are not being done today. But I can tell you more than anything else, and this is, I'll talk more when I talk about Itweka. We adopted a very archaic system of governance from the British. Right? It was never about the people. Never. It was about the people who are governing over the masses. Wananchi were subjects. And that has never really changed. And this is what we must change. That is fundamentally what will change this nation. And this is the time to do it.
Wow. Okay. On the issues of corruption, that's a very sad answer from a child. That is our backbone of the economy. And also reminds us, when we lost, back then we could lose 1 million in government. It used to cause some serious ruckus. People would be like, money has been lost. We need to get back our money. These days we lose 1 billion and we sleep well. I mean, nobody cares. We lose 2 billion. The president says we lose 2 billion daily. And we laugh about it and we continue. It has become a part of us. We are so used to it. We keep stretching the limits of corruption. We keep raising the bar. Now it's 2 billion. Tomorrow it'll be doing 5 billion. And we'll be happy as a nation. That is sad. Now, let's talk about Itweka on your NDC. I don't know if I spelled it well, but Itweka. Right. You spoke on it in your NDC. You spoke about Itweka. And it has been a conversation that has kept going. What is Itweka? What did you mean by this?
You know, just before I go to Itweka, you said something I think I would like to comment on. About the president talking about 2 billion. 2 billion shillings lost per day. And he still insists he is in office. The buck stops with you, Mr. President. If you are unable to tap and stop the leakage of a government you are running, you should have left office long time ago. We are looking forward to your exit, August 9th. Asante sana. You are going to be on record as probably the worst president we have had since independent Kenya. Now, on Itweka. Itweka is a concept that is very Bantu, let me say. Because Bantu have various initiation processes of generations. So it's a very Bantu concept. But bring it closer to home, to my own gamer community. Itweka was a moment when one generation told the generation that was ahead of them that I'm sorry. You have failed to lead the community as they should have been led. Your rule, your leadership has brought us famine, has brought us disease, has brought us war, has closed trading routes. And now your time is up.
You have to go.
Hand over the reins. Even though people may not be ready to the next generation. I'll give you an example, a very basic example. In the Gikuyu, the custodian of seed for planting was always the grandmother, because she knew how to store. She had institutional knowledge of how to store with ash and so on, so that every planting season you'd go to her and you'd get enough seed so the community can eat, can plant and get food. Now, Itweka meant this, because the graduation to be the stage sorter was a grandmother. You had to be a grandma. Itweka said, I'm sorry, now the younger girls, transfer that knowledge to the younger girls. They are no longer, they are not grandmothers. But now, I'm sorry, you have all failed us. Transfer that knowledge institutionally, but now go and rest. So Itweka was a taking over of a younger generation because the elder had failed.
Yes.
And it was bloodless. It was not it was not a coup. It was not a coup. But it was a clear understanding that this time has come. And of course, you know, the younger were always more. Now, in 1922, 100 years ago, was an Itweka that lasted 4 years in the Gikuyu. But it was synonymous to an Itweka that was happening in the country. That was the formation of Harithuku's Kikuyu Central Association. When Itweka was happening in relation to the rule of the British, we had just begun colonial rule in 1920. In 1922, people said, no. This cannot happen. 2 years of being made a formal colony. We said no. The Itweka in this regard of present-day Kenya is beyond community. It is for all of us. The country and the government must look like the face of the nation. Okay. We adopted a system of governance, as I was saying earlier, from the colonial regime that was about those governing over subjects. So you have instruments, okay, that are not about the people. It's about Mkubwa being in charge over us. We must now break that umbilical cord. We have tried to break it subsequently since we started democracy. But you can see that even at the end of all that, these shackles are still there. There are still ways a government decides they are going to ignore court orders. A government decides they are going to use a policeman to nyanyasa you. This is now a time to say, I'm sorry.
We are tired.
We are tired. This system does not work for us. The people must now gain more and more control. We have tried it with multipartyism. We have tried it with the new constitution. And yet, for some reason or another, right? Somebody decides somewhere they are going to do an SGR. And Wananchi cannot say no. Because Parliament, Parliament is also compromised. Right? And Wananchi cannot say no. To wanton destruction to the economy, but they end up paying for it. We must now reach a stage where now people are saying we must have veto power. We must have more strength. So Itweka is this, Gerald. It means if the country today is 76% young people, how is the government not 76% young people? From day one. From day one. So I can assure you, my government, from day one, in its leadership, in its instruments, will be 76% under the age of 37. Because that is the face of the nation. The government must look like its nation. You can't have dinosaurs who are 1% of the population leading,
governing
76%. It's not possible. Right? So this is their time. And there are those who will say, oh, that is ambitious. Young people don't know what they're doing. This is the most ludicrous thing. Because when we got independence, my own father, for example, well, he came from university, Stanford, direct to be the provincial agricultural head of Central Kenya. Direct. Provincial agricultural head.
Straight from
He
Stanford.
then went to director of settlement. What experience did he have? Straight from college. Right? At a young age of 30. So what are we doing here? Right? You've heard of people like Tom Mboya. By the time people like Tom Mboya died, at the age of 39, the man had been head of labor movement. The man, even though he did not go to university, one of the brightest Kenyans we've ever known, had been a minister, had been a very successful politician, was recognized worldwide by the time he died at 39. So this thing that people need experience.
You need to live longer to leave a legacy.
Let me assure you, okay, the young people we have today were given a promise, and parents have struggled to ensure that their kids go to school, have a basic life, and they've struggled. Our mothers and fathers have spent sleepless nights ensuring that they find little money, right? And to them, a lot of money to take their kids to school on the promise that if they get educated, they are going to live a better life than themselves. And today they are tamarking here all over the country, right? They are doing things that are most frightening. 5.4 million unemployed Kenyans, right? That is, again, the legacy of this government.
Wow.
5.4 million unemployed Kenyans. How are you going to absorb them? How are they going to create? This is their world. They must start taking charge of their world. And it starts now. When we got independence, there were people who used to say, Africa cannot rule. Hajui. No, let Mzumbo continue. They are going to be the same doubting Thomases today. I am telling you that is not true. I've never seen a more creative, more ethical African than the Kenyan. We work hard. We have aptitude, right? And I can tell you we have resilience beyond your imagination. Give them the challenge. they will do wonders.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
Secondly, with our governance structure, how do you have a system where today the provincial administration and security can ignore court orders, are not accountable to mwananchi? The only accountability they have is to an IG or somebody who orders them in the rank and file. We are now going to bring a very different system of governance. I'll give you an example, and I'll say it here, because this is what Itweka means.
Yes.
We want to give people more and more control of their lives, more and more control of their lives. Day one. It's no longer about a president who may be magnanimous, like Kibaki was, or Jimmy would be. This is about people feeling they are more and more in control. In America, you have a system of governance where a sheriff is like the head of a division. He's elected by mwananchi. He can be a civilian. He can be an officer of law. But he is elected by mwananchi. That system must come right back here. Where you have an OCPD, for example, who is elected by mwananchi in that division. Okay? And I'm telling you, elections can be conducted on our phones. Let us not make it like it's a complicated thing. It's just that the powers that be don't want it. Okay? Because then it's harder to manipulate. You can very clearly, you imagine, Jeru, unasema I want to be the head of this division. Wewe civilian, I want to be the OCPD.
Yeah.
You tafuta votes. And we say every 5 years after election, right? Following year after an election, you get one term on a core division, OCPD. Now you are civilian, put up there in charge of OCSs. And you can be a police officer or you can be a civilian. But the people elect you. You are accountable to the people. Okay? As well as to your oath of office. So your the way you conduct your job will be that at the end of the day, I'm accountable to the people.
To these people who are going to vote me in or out. Yes.
And we say you put a recall clause of 2 years. Right? If I'm failing, if crime has increased, or wananchi are being harassed in stations, I'll be removed. Because I can tell you, as I'm sure you have heard this story before, the harassment of ordinary mwananchi by police in police stations is beyond your imagination. It's just another tax. And this is where you start curbing it, where you make them more and more accountable, right, to the people, and the people are more in control. A chief down in the village, why is he appointed from Nairobi? Why?
A
chief is a very critical
social element.
Right? They sort out disputes. They sort out crime. Right? They're in charge of the smallest nyumba kumi. How is that person not elected by the people there? They know their people more than anyone else. Why are you deciding from Nairobi?
For them.
So the people now need to get more and more of their reign.
Power to the people.
Power to their hands. Because we have done that in the constitution, but government keeps usurping it. So the instruments which they usurp it, we take them away now. We must have veto power on expenditure. You recall when there was the government, I think I remember the government saying that they want to take money from IMF, and they got the money from IMF. You had a people's petition that led to billions of Kenyans signing and petitioning to IMF, don't give this government more money. Unfortunately, a petition is just a petition. IMF ignored it, and it has no place in law. We must have a way, right, of veto power on these elements that are causing us pain, that are being decided somewhere else. A country like Switzerland, right, with all its structures, has got a referendum on the most simple of things. Not a referendum on positions. People want power. This is the most ridiculous thing, right? These leaders are thinking about sitting in chairs and offices. Why don't you bring us a referendum on whether we should do an SGR? Or a highway,
or how much you should spend on it,
or how much we should spend on it, or even on a highway. Do you want SGR, or do you want a highway from Mombasa to Malaba? I think Kenya is
money on the box.
what they would decide. But we must reach an element where we must have, as wananchi, veto on this wanton destruction to our lives. We must have veto beyond the institutions that are there. Because we have seen these institutions are corrupted, they are usurped, or there is laws that are brought, for example, the political power, the party's whipping power, okay, that makes a party and its individuals, because many MPs I know voice these same opinions, but they can't voice them outside their party. Their party restricts them. Now coalitions will restrict them even further. You can see our voices are being muffled. There must be a way that these voices are heard and have veto power beyond these established institutions, because they are being usurped. Another example, and I'll say this, Gerald, because we've just passed the budget. In the Constitution, for example, there is the element of people's participation.
Public participation.
Public participation, yes. Sorry. Did you know when it happened?
Sina habari.
Kwa nini? When do you uko kwa maneno ya habari?
Sasa mimi sijaitwa hata kuambiwa, hata kama mwananchi, hata mambo ya habari. Mimi kama mwananchi sijaambiwa hata kuja hata useme unataka aje maneno.
You'll find that information is in the Treasury website. How many people are going to look at the Treasury website? That information is in a Gazette notice. That information, when they talk public participation, why is it only Nairobi? How many? It assumes. In fact, it doesn't assume. It's making sure you don't participate.
Yes.
So they don't give you the information.
By design.
By design. Okay? We must find a way of saying this can no longer happen, but it's no longer participation. We must have veto. Right? This must be information that is across the board on all our platforms. We should be able to get that on our phones. They all know our phone numbers. Why do we not get that information? Right? Why do we not have an element under which we can say veto? Because I can tell you, if we could veto,
yes,
if we can reach a critical mass to veto, we would go very, very far. Yeah? Government will be very careful about what they put out for us to consume. Very, very careful. This is what Itweka means. We are now taking back the reins. As you usurp institutions, as you usurp our constitution, we are going to give more and more power to ourselves,
to the people,
to a point that you will no longer be able to subject us to your wanton destruction of our country.
That is Itweka. Did you see Itweka's Kenyan yesterday at the Rambe Avenue, who was arrested for saying that the country is ready for a Itweka moment?
Yes, he did say that.
The budget, alisema budget jamaa akabebwa juju.
You know, Gerald, why is he being bebwa? These are the same police I'm telling you. Kama OCPD is elected by Mwananchi, that man would not be picked. He would not have been arrested. He told no, he has freedom of expression. He is alone there. He can pick it. He can talk. It is in our constitution. Right? He is alone. He is not even called a gathering. So he does not need to give anybody notice. Why is he being arrested? For screaming his pain. He's speaking on behalf of majority of this nation who are in pain. How do you arrest him? How do you, even you as a police officer, arrest him? Hata wewe uko kwa uchungu. We know it. We know even you police officers are feeling pain. Why are you arresting that young man? And I hope he has been released. Jado, let me tell you, if he has not been released, wherever he is, or whoever his family is, they should get in touch with you. We'll pay for his bail.
Right.
He is charged.
You got it. If I think the guy was called Kimani. If you know the gentleman and if you know whether he has been released or not, if he has not been released, please you can contact me. Unaweza nitumie ujumbe.
Yes.
Alafu tuweze kuona vile anaweza. Mheshimiwa amesema ako tayari kumsaidia. And now it speaks on it because few Kenyans actually speak about this. There are people who sit somewhere and say, someone else should talk about this. Someone else should demonstrate and all that. Someone else should go and pick it. Someone else should make the screams that we are making. Someone else should be that gentleman who was arrested on Rambe Avenue. I mean, we have a class of Kenyans that feel like it's somebody else's problem. As long as I can have my food, I can go to work and do that. It's not my issue, Go and talk about it. Do you think this country is ready for an Itweka moment? Do you think we are ready as a nation for an Itweka moment?
Yes. Yes, I do. Gerald, I really do. If you look at recent history, these demonstrations have been there.
Yes.
The problem is they've been quelled so fast. You remember the Boniface Mwangi.
Yes.
They have been out on the streets. But the same draconian police, really, the Constitution gives us a right to picket. Just give them notice, go and picket. There's nothing wrong. But you can see the police usurp the law. And they've caused it like it's something of pain. There's nothing wrong with demonstration.
Yes.
As long as they are peaceful, there's nothing wrong with voicing. That young man yesterday did not have a stone, did not have a weapon. He was just voicing his opinion.
Yeah, he was speaking.
He was voicing. We are ready. And those who feel or have doubt should now understand this is the time to take control. If they don't do it now, it gets harder and harder and harder. Because when dignity keeps being destroyed, you lose your sense of self-worth.
You get used to it. You become less sensitive.
You get into Stockholm syndrome. And you don't even care. And you don't even care you don't care. You know? You don't even care that you don't care. You don't even care that you don't care. And this is where a lot of our young people are. Now,
kuna jamaa ito Juliani alisema ni kubaya mpaka ikiwa kuzuri tunashindwa ni nini mbaya.
We must come out. This is our time to come out. You know, the last elections, because, we have always had hope that elections will be turning points. The last election, we went very far as a nation. We had a Supreme Court that nullified a presidential election. The third in the world ever. The first in Africa. It tells you that our reforms were working. The reforms that were put in the judiciary, in our constitution, and the reforms that we did in the Electoral Act. Okay. Now, even as we did that and succeeded very well, we went on further to an election we saw and witnessed that made people feel, does it really matter anymore? The second election that we all witnessed was an election that had the president competing with turnout. Okay? And I can't remember which one won against the other. Okay? But, we all know nobody showed up at the polling station. Yes. But we were shown some figures. So now, these are the things that take people's... What difference does it make? We don't even show up, but you put numbers on a board.
Does it matter?
You go on further, right? Where we take Raila Odinga in complete defiance. Something that everybody said is treasonable, can never happen. We all assemble at Uhuru Park. And then the 30th of January, 2018, Raila Odinga is sworn in. Something that has never happened in the center of the city. No matter what anybody said, I can tell you, it started at the presidency. I think you saw it somewhere in South America. But even the US, I think it was, what was it? What was the country? Where the US came out and even supported the president that was sworn in at a similar occasion. It was Maduro against Maduro. Where they came out and said that's the government they recognize, the one that's been sworn in like at Uhuru Park. Now, we reached that level of defiance where we are saying, fine, the systems are so rotten that we have defied to that degree. But where does it end up? It ends up in a personal handshake that again takes away the spirit of Kenyans. That after all that, you just go for a personal handshake and people don't know what they have won out of this. They don't see what they have gained. That IEBC has never changed since 2017. There have been no reforms. I have never seen an audit on that election. Right? What exactly happened? The court said there were irregularities and illegalities in that presidential election. Have you ever seen an audit, Gerald?
John.
Nothing has changed. That's the same one we are relying on this time to bring us change. I mean, let's be serious. So where Kenyans have always felt maybe elections bring a change, I think even Kenyans, that's why you're seeing huge undecided voters. That really, are we really going to get change out of an election cycle? The only way we are going to get change is by understanding that we need to take power in our own hands. We need to control as the citizenry of this country. We need to come out and demonstrate peacefully. We need to come out and make sure that we participate in this election so that it makes it harder and harder for anybody to rig it. But even more so, we need to be clear that if they try anything, we are also prepared to make sure they do not get away with it. And we are prepared to make sure they do not get away with it peacefully, as we did in 2017, because we did peacefully. The people who caused violence were police. Again, that instrument of oppression that the Mzungu brought to us.
The police
who
ndio
were
walikuwa wanaleta
shooting.
violence.
Hiyo. That is an instrument of oppression. Okay?
Okay.
They are the ones who shot innocent Kenyans. But otherwise, Kenyans were very peaceful.
Okay.
Okay? We must come out and participate. We ignore this process. We are saying the pain continues and will continue for generations to come. And the frightening thing is that when it does, it always snaps. Every country reaches a boiling point. Even Kenya has that capacity. We don't want to get there.
Okay. Now, moving to what you've already mentioned and almost touched on it. You are in ODM. You've been in ODM for all this time. You stood with them in NASA. We saw you eating tear gas in 2017. Yes, the first time we saw the police raiding you. It's a lot of crazy things that are happening. At some point they said you were hiding Baba. We saw you also swearing in Baba.
Tumefanya maajabu.
You see all these things. You were a presidential candidate on the ODM ticket before, of course, you moved to Safina, where you're now running on its ticket. We saw you in Kasarani with those guys in black, the gentlemen in black, boys to men.
They threw stones. They threw stones.
I mean, we saw all these things happening. I mean, it looks like you were ready to go through the thickest and the thinnest of paths with Raila Odinga. And you seem to have some level of, I don't know what to say, it is ideological or passion for this man and what he stood for. But I don't know what made you stick in there. But one would wonder, after going through such experience with one person, with a man, a gentleman, and what happened? Now, what happened between the two guys? The other day we saw you've spoken your mind about your association with him. Again, you've spoken so passionately about what he stood for in 2017 and that you went to swear him in as a people's president. And you've given us a reference of a country that has accepted such a way to take a president who was sworn in by the WANJIGI. Now, what happened after all that, WANJIGI?
Gerald, you know, this is a very good question. Gerald.
This is the point we should be crying.
And yes. And, you know, I love this nation so much. That we honestly have a major leadership credibility gap. I told you I participated greatly in the first Jubilee government being formed. And if you recall at the time, the challenge was the ICC. The challenge was peace, because we had come through something we never thought in this nation would see, the 2007 post-election violence. Yes. Where you had, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of displaced Kenyans, and thousands lost their lives. 1,400, 1,500 people lost their lives. So I was very keen on ensuring that, in fact, it's a request of my two friends that I helped, let me say, usher in, nursemaid, a process that created the first Uhuru government. And I can tell you, I did it with passion and heart, knowing that especially the two communities, if they can come together and have peace, this nation, no communities will fight. Because that had long been coming. There had been a lot of brainwashing from you know, the previous regime's period. I was also keen that a new generation of leadership was going to be ushered in and turn the country around. As I've said earlier, we were greatly disappointed. So I myself decided to reach out to Raila, who was analog in 2013. We called him analog. But I said, you know, at least this analog man, akona historia fighting for the people of Kenya. He had stuck out his neck in the second liberation, had suffered greatly, and was a hero of the second liberation, you know, amongst others like Ken Matiba. And told him, you know, we are at such a stage that what is being done must be corrected, must be stopped. I can tell you that in all the discussions we had to the runner-up of the 2017 election, I was very clear, and he was very clear. This was not about nusu mkate. This was about winning the presidency. That's why we went all the way to swearing in. January 30th. The handshake was the shocker. Let me tell you, Gerald. Unajua sisi, maybe we are fearless, but I can tell you, we had agreed ya kwamba after the swearing in, the month of February we keep quiet. We see how the government is going to react. Okay. And their reaction, we saw it. They kicked out my good friend Miguna and tried to disenfranchise him as a Kenyan. He's a Kenyan, born and bred. You're never going to take away his citizenship. But they did. They arrested and charged a man called Mheshimiwa Kajwang for wearing a wig. The swearing in. It was different because of what? Because he did not participate. Other than wearing a wig.
You wore a wig publicly.
And you know, Kajwang was defending himself until late last year. Okay? Unfortunately, you know, the court said
the answer accepted.
Yes. But you imagine, all these years, he was defending himself.
Lakini alikuwa anaenda hapo na wig.
You arrested even people like Raila's sister, Ruth, was arrested. Okay. I myself, they attempted to arrest me and even tried to arrest my father. Now, that was the month of February. Yes. A lot with me personally, they didn't succeed. Then, in March, my good friend calls me and I like saying this because I think it's good to be transparent. Calls me and my friend James Orengo to his office. March 8th. And says,
Orengo called you?
No. Raila called me.
Oh, Raila called you. Orengo, okay. And
he calls Orengo, and we were three of us in his office. And he says, Jimmy, wewe ulisema February tunyamaze, tumenyamaza. So where do we go from here? I said, now, we are now in March. Tunafanya kitu ambayo inaitwa the March in March to State House. After all, wewe uliapishwa. Na huna ofisi.
Twende
tuchukue ofisi.
Jimmy na unapendange maisha yako.
We even set a date. March 27th. We will march to State House. And we will emotionalize Nairobi. Rebrand NRM and call it NRM Reloaded and go to State House. Do you know, after 4 hours, we concluded. Gerald. Mimi nikatoka 6. I went to start doing the rebranding ya NRM to have that Sunday a rally at Imara Daima. The following day, March 9th, James Orenga calls me and says,
on a TV.
Nimeitwa na watu wa runinga. Said, iko nini? Said, you see, tunasikia ile State House ulikuwa anasema ameenda Harambee House. I said, nani? Rafiki yetu ameenda Harambee House.
Baba.
I said, he said, no, I've just been called. I'm in shock. I was in shock. When we met immediately after he was at Harambee House.
You're rebranding RNM?
It was busy. No, see, we now stopped because now we didn't know what this was. Okay. But I met Baba. He called me immediately after he finished at Harambee House, and we met with Orengo. 3 of us again. And he gave me a document, 9-point agenda. Okay. And all I asked him, so very good, you've signed President, Republic, President, People's President. Lakini what is this? Hii ni document ya surrender ama ni nini? Because I don't see where power is here. Okay?
Iko jina, lakini hakuna ofisi
hapa. This is a surrender document. Okay? Where is power? I thought we were in this for power. He said, you can see compensation. I said, compensation is not power. Okay?
It was compensation in what terms?
Compensation of people, victims, all these things.
In monetary terms.
Dealt with, yes.
In monetary terms.
Yes, in monetary terms. Sijui mambo ya corruption will be dealt with. I said, what teeth do you have to deal with corruption? Where is the power? You have power. I said, I don't understand how you have gone even to surrender, right? Without a template from your generals. You don't go alone. This doesn't look like it has anything to do with the people. Yes. It looks like hii ni yako binafsi na familia yako. So on the basis of that, some of us And I said specifically myself, let me car kando. I watch what's going on. So we have been watching. I have been away from that exercise. Right? I think history will judge us correctly. All right? So he took our ambitions. He took our energy. He took the aspirations and dreams of Kenyans. Remember, these are Kenyans we promised canon in 2017.
Yeah.
And the perception of canon for everybody is different. But it's a place of plenty. It's a place that your problems are solved. Okay? Which is this canon that came out of handshake? As I keep saying, more and more Kenyans are hungry. Since
aliona mamba. Uliona mamba.
Mamba gani? More, you see, handshake was supposed to now be a pancreas for some form of canon. Hatujaona canon. More and more people are hungry. I don't think the problems have changed in any manner. They've just gotten worse. So this is where Kenyans start losing hope. Because if their heroes are going and doing personal arrangements, right? Arrangements that do not involve them in this struggle, they lose hope.
So that is why. That was a point of departure.
That is a point of departure. But that was not only the point of departure. I must say, Raila himself assured me many times over he wanted to retire. In fact, to be sincere with you, he's one of the greatest pushers of me standing as president. He said, you know, Jimmy, I've been in this a long time. Sijaona mtu kama wewe ambao huna reverse. You must get into this. You must go for the seat of presidency. This is your time. Many of us, we are all going.
Akasema baba mimi naretire.
Akasema yeye anaenda. Yeye anaenda. And apart from my family who also were pushing me, he himself said, please, Kenya needs a person like you. And I respect him for that. Where he suddenly got the bug to stand again, sijui kama ni yeye ama kuna wengine ambao wamemzungusha. Because he admitted to me he felt his time had come to an end. And you know, the end is that, you know, you normally cannot transfer from one revolution to another. The independence generation had its heroes, right? And warriors. Jaramogi, his father, was one of them, Jomo Kenyatta. And when Jaramogi tried to transfer to the second liberation, in that election he was number 4, 1992. Number 4. His running mate was Masini Muliro, who again came from the first liberation. Like you can't transfer from one to another. I can tell you, if, let's say, Matiba and Raila, who had been the heroes of the second liberation, who had been detained together, had matched up to join to be on the ticket in 1992, I can assure you would have had a very different history. This is now what we are calling the Itweka moment. And it's beyond economic revolution. The one who started saying it's economic, but I can tell you it's beyond. We're talking about our self-worth, our patriotism, the way of governance. It's beyond economic. This is an Itweka revolution.
It's a generational switch.
It's just a generational thing. A switch. And he cannot be the hero. He will not succeed. This is a very different time. Very different time. This was a time he should have nurtured new leadership. Yeah, these 76% young people are not going to be led by a grandpa. It's not going to happen. Okay? This is a very different time that needs some very different decision making, very different thinking. The world today is on our phones. We must think globally and act locally. We are at a very different stage. And he can't do it. You don't transfer from one revolution to another. We recognize him as a hero of our second liberation. And we always hold him in very high esteem. I have the greatest respect for him. Right? I can tell you among them, he's probably the greatest fighter. He's a real fighter. He's a real fighter. I can tell you I was very disappointed with handshake. Right? Because I kept feeling we can push. You can push further. A lot more.
All right. Talking about the handshake, sir, there has been a rumor mill. There has been a conversation. There have been rumors that the handshake deal was negotiated even before the swearing in. And looking at the way Jubilee had handled demonstrations from NASA earlier, the tear gas, the clobbering and all that, the swearing in event seemed so seamless. The police were there, looks like, to protect the event that was going on. There has been speculations that the handshake deal must have been reached earlier between the president and Raila Odinga before the exercise that you guys were performing at Uhuru Park. Is that true?
Gerald, what I know is that there were definite approaches. I mean, there's no government that wins or goes through such a controversial election that does not try and reach out. There were attempts. There were attempts directly by government members, by the head of state himself, and I'll tell you from a lot of the donor community.
Yes.
But you see, in this, it's what decision is brought on the table when we were moving. And the decision that was made, brought on the table, was that we must go for swearing in. Okay. It was something that had to be completed. It had been promised. It had been promised. Wakiapisha, tunaapisha. We kept singing it. Tunarusha. So, they may have been there, but I can tell you, I believe the decision of no strong arm tactics at swearing in is because that would have led to bloodshed a government may not have been able to recover from. Okay. I don't believe it was anything negotiated. Okay.
So there was no deal.
I don't believe so, because I'll be very personal. Raila relied a lot on me, because even where he slept the night before the swearing in and where he slept after, I was the one who did all that. Okay. I drove him in my car to Uhuru Park. Okay. I know how he felt. I know how I also felt. So I can tell you, there was nothing. We didn't go in with any belief that the government would be gentle. Okay. No. We were even surprised when they started removing GSU the night before. Yes. So and you recall, they were not gentle. They attacked the media. They went to Limuru and plugged out a lot of media stations' connections. Let's be sincere here. Okay. I don't think they were doing that because there was some agreement. It was defiance, right?
So there was no pre-negotiation.
I don't believe there was any prior negotiation.
Okay. All right, 5 years post-handshake, Miguna, your brother and friend in the course, the man who held the Bible and said, Baba, kula Biblia, kama president, is still stuck in Canada. Servers, that you said, fungueni server. Servers has not been opened.
Correct.
So 5 years post-handshake. What is the story? Give us a testimony.
Gerald, I was talking, I'm glad you raised Miguna. Miguna, I must take off my hat. That man is fearless. That man had the courage to do what many others, because I can tell you, we had tried many people to do that swearing in. Wanasema leo, yes, kesho wamekuwa mteja. Miguna had the courage. And I salute him. And if there's one Kenyan, I feel really, in fact, this government and the government to come will pay huge compensation to disenfranchising a fellow Kenyan in Miguna. Okay. And he's my brother. My heart is with him. He did a courageous thing, and what has happened to him is the injustice of the worst kind. He is coming back. We shall bring him back, and we shall honor him for his courage. You're right. The server was not open. I talked about earlier. I talked about earlier. We had talked about IEBC audit of that election. Do you know? Many people do not really know the true story. Server is one part. Okay. Server is one part. The court gave us scrutiny of server and the forms. Okay. Kumbuka kulikuwa form inaitwa
34A na
34B.
The infamous papers.
Because the server had not been opened, the declaration of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as president was premised on the forms. Okay. 34A,
34B,
B, and what ended up becoming C, the final document. That was what he was declared on. So we went to Milimani to scrutinize those forms. Si saba wamekataa kufungua anniversary towers. Wamesema sijui nini.
So walisema ilikuwa Ufaransa. Haikuwa hapa.
Ilikuwa Ufaransa sijui nini. Tukaja Milimani. And at Milimani, the forms were brought out. 34A. Now, it's important you know the kind of hole that was there. IBC brought the forms. Right? And the head of operations, a lady called Kasaid, brought those forms. Higher. Inside, NASA had 2 people. Jubilee had 2 people. The courts had 2 people. And IBC had 2 people to look at these forms. A template was agreed. Is it original? Yes, no. So we started looking at original. Of the 34 A's, only about 10% were originals. So they forgot to do, they said, put those aside, let's go to B. 290 constituencies. Kwa 290 constituencies, they were all originals. Si kuna original moja tu. Haya. A form was created that was accepted by everybody. Kwa mfano. Tuseme Kibra. Constituency. Number 1 item. Security features, yes or no? Ziko ama ziko. Number 2, serial number, iko ama iko. Haya. Returning officer amesign ama hajasign. Agents wamesign ama hajasign. Haya. Total number of votes. Not how they are apportioned. Ile ambao have been cast on that form. That's all. Not how they are apportioned. Then at the end, any other observation. Hapo mwisho, Jubilee na sign, NASA ina sign, court ina sign, IBC inapiga movie. 290. They were all done by 7:30 the next morning. Of the 290, 84 did not have security features. Ni kama hii hela yetu hii 20 shilling. Ukiangalia ukeko kata, it has got a hologram.
Naona simba mo.
Those were the papers of IBC. 84 did not have security features. On those 84, the total number of votes, nikwambia ilikuwa ngapi?
Ilikuwa ngapi?
5.4 million.
Wow.
Removed from the count.
5.4 million.
That election could not stand. Okay. Now, where has there been an audit of that whole exercise? What went wrong? This is where we fault my friend Raila. People died. We have 85 people that were killed by police bullets, including Baby Pendo. What has happened? Is this the same IEBC that has not done an audit? What exactly happened? Who interfered with the server? Why was the server never open? Who interfered with those forms? Who printed those forms that were not IEBCs? Because those were not printed by Al Ghurair. Right? And this is the same IEBC we are facing this time. I mean, how fair are we being to the voter? This is why the voter is despondent. He's very despondent. Okay. Are we really going to get a free and fair election? I can tell you, Gerald, this is going to be a sweat and a half. Ya ambao unakuja. Because you have a president ambao amesema yeye anapigia debe mtu. Okay? The president has every right to vote for who he wants. But he does not have the right to be public about it. Yeah. Are you public about your vote? You go to that deba, you vote. Hii no siri yako. Him as head of state. Because you can imagine they are not even from the same party. Okay? They are not even in the same party. He should be in the forefront of showing impartiality. Right? Like Kibaki did. Kibaki, nobody knows. He never announced who he's supporting. And we had a very peaceful transition. What we have seen here is partiality. What we have seen is state machinery being used to support one candidate. Right? A bias towards one candidate by the state. This election, ndugu yangu, I can tell you, people must show up and vote because that's the only way we are going to defeat whatever impunity is being planned. Okay. We must turn out in large numbers. Large numbers. And stop impunity because large numbers stops it. Okay. If we do not vote, impunity will be perpetuated.
If we do not vote. If we don't now, from the reference that you've made, it looks like you're saying without saying that there could be possibilities of rigging elections. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We didn't solve. The same Chibukati is a returning officer. Was he not the same one last time?
It was.
What audit has he been subjected to?
Okay.
So what credibility is there here?
Wow. Okay, that's a bit strong, right? It's a possibility of elections being rigged. But anyway, wake up and go and vote, and we see what comes out. All right, I think you've spoken about your agenda in terms of the WANJIGI and the agenda you've had. The things that you would want to do for the people. I think you've spoken on that. I would want to ask a question here. 2 questions maybe combined. And the first question is, all these guys that you're talking about, from the forming of Jubilee government, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, who is ruling right now, all these gentlemen and ladies, you've worked with them before. You've had a conversation as friends. You built something. You've built a government before, Jubilee government. You built a government of the people, NASA government. Now, all these guys, you worked with them. What is your point of departure from all these guys? What is that now we will say makes you stand out of these guys?
I'll tell you. And I'll be very clear. You see, I am a man, because of my upbringing, because of my training as a businessman, that believes in the betterment and the greatness of our people. You know, even as a businessman, the greatest thing you want to see is people prospering, because that becomes your market. So my eye is very different to the eye of an ordinary politician who wants to see dependence. Who wants to see, many of them want to see dependence. Wanataka kuombwa. I want to see people who are independent, who are free, who are prospering. Because for me, that is market. You grow, you're growing the basket, and the basket becomes bigger for all of us. So I have a very different eye. And my motive has always been to see our people in terms of greatness. And I'll go back to a little history. That history was premised because I came back from school when there was a second liberation.
Yes.
And I got inculcated by people like my father, by people like Kenneth Matiba, in seeing sacrifice of people's lives. That's when I got to meet Raila, by the way. Seeing sacrifice of people's lives just to see people free. Imagine that was my indoctrination into siasa. Coming out on the streets. I was tear gas those days. There was a movement called Magauzi, which came up before the 97 elections. I was one of the biggest funders of Magauzi. Imagine at that young age.
I had
a little money to even support Magauzi, which led to Moi not standing again after the 97 election. That was what brought IPPG. So I was even called Bwanadawa because I used to carry around tablets that people could take and the tear gas would not affect them. Antihistamines. So we went through that was my inculcation into siasa. But even more so, I'll tell you, Gerald, I'm a great believer of the African people. Africa is great. We were colonized and subjected to a rule and a direction that have subjugated us as third-class citizens in the world. I'm a man who believes the time has now come for the greatness of the black man in this world to be counted. We are first world in all that we have. This is a continent that has 35%, almost 40% of the resources, mineral wealth of the world. This is a country that has what is going to be the biggest energy source of future generations to come, that is green energy. And we must take our rightful place and reposition this good country of ours. I do not believe that my competitors have got what I have got. A very clear resolve to make our people great for generations to come. They do not have my resolve. I believe they have been so tainted with the kind of politics they've been in. Because as you can see, many of them, especially my competitors, my two competitors, have been in politics for the last 30 years. You become inculcated into a basic framework that is difficult to move out of. You saw even yesterday when some leaders were complaining about accommodation in a coalition. You have not heard anywhere where there's been discussion, and in that discussion there's been decisions being made about the people. It's about positions of people who are retiring as governors, trying to be something else. It's no longer about the people. They have been inculcated into a nature that is too selfish. We must start thinking about Kenya in the context of Africa, in the context of 1.4 almost billion people that must now be repositioned to be the greatest people in this world. We have everything, and this is our time. And it's my clear resolve. You know, you look at a good country like China. China went through 2 specific periods. From the monarch era, they went through the Cultural Revolution of Mao Zedong, where he inculcated the culture of what you see as Chinese society. That was a very bloody revolution. Okay? Because he wanted to get rid of the past. A lot of history books were banned, and the cause of what a Chinaman, China woman are was defined at that time. Then you had the economic revolution that was Deng. The economic power of China and its 1.5 billion people was defined by Deng. We must start thinking like that, behaving like that. We, as we were saying earlier, are not even a Kenyan that feels patriotic anymore. I've been around the country, and you find Kenyans don't even know how Kenya began. Young people, they don't even care. Hatuna habari. We must start understanding who we are, what we're about, because history was not written by us. We need to understand what the Kenyan identity is. What you are. Ukienda Nigeria, a Nigerian knows who he is. He speaks pidgin English. He has a particular nguo. He has particular food. He has particular music. He has his way of life. In fact, when I was younger, I used to laugh at their pidgin English. Now I admire it because it's unique to them. A Muindi who was colonized for 300 years maintained his name, maintained his clothing, maintained his food, maintained his religion. Sisi ni Waafrika ama ni wazungu. Kwa sababu we have English names. We took on Christianity. Right? Even our clothing is this. We don't even have, apart from maybe basic ugali, we don't have really what you can put out there. We cannot define ourselves. Everything. We can't define ourselves. We need to start defining this product called Kenya so that we are proud again about who we are. Right? And unleash it then into the world. Right? Because we have so much. There's so much that defines us that we don't appreciate it, like I was saying earlier. All right. And from there now we get to the next part, which is our greatness economically. I say green energy because that is the next, that's the next colonization if we are not careful. If we are not careful, that is the next colonization. This air we are breathing, right? This geothermal in our soil, right? The wind, the sun, that is the energy source. Unajua the world is moving away from fossil fuels. Yes. Ile oil ya Saudi Arabia inaisha. They are now coming for this. The way the Mzungu came for our land to create cash crops, this is now the new cash crop. And if we don't have focused leadership, you will have a few sheikhs rather than all of us being sheikhs. We must all be sheikhs.
Haya, misikiti mingi wachache. All right, I want to take maybe around 3 or 2 calls. Nambari ni 0779-800-10. Bunge la Mwananchi liko wazi. Nambari ni 0779-800-10. 0779-800-10. Bunge la Mwananchi liko wazi. 0779-800-10. Bunge la Mwananchi liko wazi. Nambari ni 0779-800-10. Haya, wacha niangalie comments kidogo hapa. YouTube, Wanjigi the 5th, that is Stars Kenya Graphics. Good morning from Diaspora Center. MCTNA Jimmy Wanjigi yako moto. Haya, Karen Juguna, good morning Gerald. Gotea Jimmy. Jitegwa Ituria morning bitok and the Tackle family. Ambia jamba yetu thai. Haya, Gilbert Korir, Jimmy ameamua today is today. We love you Jimmy. Tupe uondo. David Akero, thank you Jimmy. Watu ni wezi. Conmen, charlatans. Haya, headphones please. Do the skia simu. Bunge la Mwananchi, jambo.
Hello Gerald, good morning.
Good morning to you, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Leta habari.
Salamia Mheshimiwa Wanjigi.
Sijui kama nakusikiza.
Nakusikia.
Najua kitabu nilikuwa nasemanga when I grow up I want to be like this.
Now you have grown up.
Asante.
Sasa hivi I'm a grown up. ukisikiza Jimmy
Yes.
is a leader. Ukisikiza ile maoni yako nayo, naona kwa nini hajai mweka akwe huko kwa uongozi.
Okay.
Hata ukisikia maneno ya SGR venye alisema, ilikuwa na cost around 50 billion bana, ikaenda paka 300 billion.
Where that nimeshtuka. I need counseling after this.
Hiyo kitu nilisikia akisema, kuna time alisema hata mimi nilishtuka, ilinisumbua kichwa sana. But now you see hii election inakuja si rahisi. Hii watu wenye wamejipanga, wakina Jimmy wasipojipanga, itakuwa ngumu kupita. So lazima washikane. Unajua ukienda vita lazima ujipange. Tafute jeshi ya kutosha. So that they can win these elections and then they change this country. The problem is sometimes people say nice things, then once they get to power, wanatusahau bwana. Sisi huko kwetu tuliamusha jamaa wa MCA wakati alipotea for 5 years. Akaingia nyasi. Na tulimfanyia paka mnafanya harambee bwana. Wakati alipata alikuja akapotea Nairobi. Oleni. Niko hapa nitamfinya, nitakisha hajaruka.
Toboa ni nani?
Huko kwetu unajua jana anajua huko Bomet. Tulikuwa juu sana mlikuwa na msanii.
Bomet nilikuwa nimeenda kuwaitishia agenda pia. Unajua nilienda pale, unajua if you don't also mind the counties kuna kuwa na shida. So I'm trying to ensure that also you can vote at the county level. Mahali kuna agenda.
Unajua engineer?
Acha kuanza mambo ya Bomet kwanza. Turudi hapa nyumbani. Okay. Haya, uko na swali nyingine?
Kuna swali nyingine. So Jimmy, I don't know. Jimmy anasimama president.
Kabisa. Tunaenda kwa debe.
Niliona walikuwa na Asla. So walikuwa free amejoin Asla bwana.
Unajua Asla ni rafiki yangu. Lakini in this we are competitors.
Yeah. Okay. Jambo bunge la mwananchi, jambo. Good morning. Bunge la mwananchi, good morning. Yona ameingia nyasi. But ni 0779-800-010 bunge la mwananchi liko wazi 0779-800-010. Kariran juga nasema Honorable Kawira ngapi huyo hapa kidogo. Some comments I'm trying to look at here. Najua time kidogo imeenda, acha nikimbiza. Murage Mugo never paid attention to Jimmy Wanjigi. Now I know better. Henceforth JW will get my full attention. Okay, that's Murage Mugo. Karen Juguna, I salute Jimmy because he's a very wise and street smart man whose intent for Kenyans is on a level higher than any other politician. He allows and knows the root cause of our problems in simplest terms. Okay. Karen Juguna, kama how the Jama who was harassed by police jana outside Treasury because of expressing himself on the high cost of living. Melo, kindly ask Wanjigi how long he would build the Kenol to Karatina highway, which has taken these Urus incompetent government 10 years to build. Okay. Bunge la mwananchi, jambo.
Good morning, Gerald.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good. This is Meshach.
Yes, Meshach. Tuambie.
Salimia Honorable Wanjigi, formerly one of us, now Safina.
Asante, Meshach.
Yes, I love the idea that Honorable Wanjigi has about probably moving the country forward in terms of economy and all that. But there is also a reality on the other end that we are not going to, we cannot depart away from this coalition and win presidency, for example, with one party. It's a bit difficult, not impossible, but a bit difficult. So, and then Mheshimiwa Wanjigi has not shown clearly whether he is part of One Kenya land or this other side. Of course, he says Honorable William Ruto is afraid. CC on this other side, which is okay. That is democratic right for everyone. But now, for people who are looking up to him with these ideas, if presidency never happened, then what do we say now? Are we losing this whole idea that he has in terms of moving the country forward, or what do we do with it? Because it will be sad that he does not make it to presidency, and so all those ideas are left hanging or are thrown somewhere in the gutters when they're either the other side what this other side has claimed.
Okay.
So again, the last one is for those who would want to run in your party, for example, what would you tell them, especially here in Nairobi or maybe any other part of the country?
Okay.
How do they get to be part of your vision in reality?
Meshach, I want to thank you for those wonderful questions.
Try. Rita, I think you're helping us take up the questions that are coming in. You come on, usikie. Usikie. Saidia ni headphones. Bunge la Mwananchi, jambo. Nagenda kuchukulia. Salama sana, vipi?
Vipi sana, niko huku Kirinyaga nasikiza live.
Uko Kirinyaga, haya tuambie.
Naam. Wanjigi nimemsikiza, is a very nice leader at Ukwend. Is he really that, maybe he's a businessman, naweza kuwa na to convince. Jimmy, are you really that person you're talking about?
Absolutely and completely. I am not fake.
How can you know?
Well, I think let me be very clear.
Yes.
As you have seen me in public life, what I say, I do.
Okay.
I did not have to stick out my neck. Willingly stick out for Raila Odinga or for Uhuru and Ruto. But I stuck out my neck without any glory, without any position. Very clearly for a path for this nation. It was self-sacrificing. Because it takes a lot to stick out your neck. You stick out your neck, your resources, your mind, your time. And this was not for any personal benefit. It was for the benefit of Kenyans. Because if Kenyans broadly benefit, we all benefit. Okay. Even myself as a businessman. So we have shown and walked the path. We have walked the path when we were not on the ballot. You saw us being raided in our homes. We are not on the ballot. And we still stuck there. Okay. So we are people who are as you have seen us.
Muko vile mlivyo. Aya, bunge la Mwananchi, jambo. Hello, bunge la Mwananchi, jambo.
Morning, Gerald. How are you?
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Adera Kibinda.
Yeah.
And I'm vying in Murang'a as well.
Okay.
I'm glad that Jimmy is in studio with you today. But I want to tell Mr. Jimmy Wanjigi, he's good as a great kingmaker. He has great ideas and he has great things for this country. So I'm just wishing him all the best.
Okay.
Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you so much. All the best in Kirinyaga.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nimeomba dakika zako 10 tu. Mheshimiwa, just 10 minutes. Alafu tutafunga. Najua wananchi za zingine ibunge yao ukiwanyima wanaleta shida kabisa. Kitu hawezi rudi. Mailo kindly ask Wanjigi how long you would build the kennel. I think I spoken about the kennel one. Maybe I'll give you an opportunity to respond to the calls first so that you don't lose your train of thought.
I remember very good questions from Meshach. Meshach, wajua, you said we were together in ODM. I think you meant ODM.
Yes.
Si kutoka, nilipigwa mawe, nikafukuzwa. So let's get the record straight. I am in spirit in ODM. Unfortunately, I think ODM also needs to go through an Itweka moment.
To give Meshach a chance.
I think Meshach needs a chance because I can see there is dictatorship that's even going to come right to an MCA. So I think it is also an Itweka moment for ODM. Now, let me say categorically this, that I have been in these elections under the new constitution. And I can tell you the race is yet to be defined. Coalitions is one aspect, and you can see we are being boxed into coalitions. But at the end of the day, a two-horse race is decided after the first election. And I can tell you, in 2013, it was a lot of effort to ensure that we don't get to runoff. The 2017 race, at best, whether you were in Jubilee or you were in NASA, was a runoff. If, for example, we had had a situation in 2007 where the same constitution was in place and you had a three-horse race, as you saw with Kalonzo Musyoka, that would have been an immediate runoff. So we are talking about a situation in this election that has not been called. We don't have to have coalitions. This is about Kenyans saying, what is the question of this election? It's not a question of people coming together, so-called representing particular kingpins of regions. This is beyond that. What should be binding us is the spirit of Itweka, which is, this is the time for 99.1% of Kenyans to say this is their country, this is their economy. What should be binding us is the 76% youth who should be saying this is their time. They are not going to wait anymore. Not units of tribal conglomerates, not units of coalitions, which are nothing else but tribes coming together with so-called kingpins. Itweka means get rid of these kingpins. The time is over for them. Yeah, this is a time for a different kind of politics. It is not about that anymore. We've done it enough. It started in 2002. It's now time to change this template. And that's what I'm saying. Come here. We may appear solo, but we are not. We are representative of the majority of Kenyans. The majority of Kenyans who are also showing today they are disinterested in the election. This is where the election is going to be, not in coalitions of tribal units. We must now see us as different. We are all alike. We are all in pain, and we have a different revolution we're talking about. This is what will change this election. This is what Itweka is.
Okay, that's what Itweka is. I think it answers a lot of questions on that have been pushed. Allow me to just go through the comments very quickly. So I'm sorry if I'm taking a bit of your time. Milo, I think yes, you mentioned about Karatina, General Karatina.
I'll tell you the biggest problem with what you're facing on those roads is a lack of government money. They do not have money. They are not paying contractors. If you saw just yesterday in the budget, the outstanding pending bills for local contractors is almost 500 billion shillings. You imagine how many people have gone under because of that. That's both national and county governments. It's a disaster beyond your imagination. The government is broke, my friend, and that's what you're facing. A road like that should not take a maximum of no more than 2 years. That's a maximum.
So ni pesa haipo. Haya, kuna swali pia kabla sijasahau. There's a question on joining Safina. And person would want to run under your party.
Karibu Safina, karibu Safina. As you know, the deadline for joining parties is over, but we are willing to accommodate associations with people who may have joined other smaller parties who are not in coalitions, or people who are running as independents. We are forming coalitions and linking up. The Safina office we have at View Park Towers. Please feel free to go there, talk to a very friendly staff. Leave your contacts. We'll be in touch. We have a very big campaign schedule beginning this month.
All right. Last phone call. I think it's a diaspora call. Jambo, very quickly. We are 8 minutes past top of the time. Jambo. Bunga la mwenye Jambo. Huyo that's a diaspora call. I think huyo ni ako diaspora. Kidogo. Jambo, bunga la mwenye.
Gerard, vipi?
Salama sana. Umepiga kabisa. Wacha nikupe nafasi. Raka upesi.
Nini bana, kama everyone is broke, credit nimepiga ikaisha.
Pole bwana. Ndio hali ya uchumi ndio hiyo sasa. Wamesema imegrow 155%.
Sasa wana tumenyanyaswa hadi, lakini ni sawa. Jimmy utaingia hapo na you shall make us proud.
Asante with your prayers and your vote.
Yes. Ukuja huku Kirinyaga ufanya campaign kidogo, unaweza nini?
Nitakuja. Yes. Tupatie kura. Yes, we want the votes. We want your votes. Yes. And we plead humbly for them.
Okay.
Uko na swali nyingine?
My question is,
yes.
Jimmy, what is your plan with the youth? What are you planning for the youth? What do you have in the basket for the young generation? You know, we are suffering.
I know.
The country is yes.
The youth, let me be very clear to you, is 76% of the population of this country. That is under the age of 37. There is no way a government cannot look like its population, cannot look like the face of its nation. The youth are going to be 76% in charge of their own destiny.
76.
As a government. 76.
Because someone actually requested to ask for 30. So now you are saying 70.
76.
Okay. Well and good.
Have I answered?
Yes, you've answered. All right. Wacha nifunge simu. Nisome comments too. Poleni, I love to close bunge for now. Lakini tajaribu kuwatengenezea time mzito kidogo next time kwa sababu ya wakati nimeiba masaa ya mheshimiwa hapa. Nisome tu comments very quickly. Daudi Wene, yep sure. Mi sasa hii na arasiwa hapa Mwiki police station ati na drive kama nimeshika simu na hata simu iko off. Okay, mambo ya polisi here. John Ombasa, we want men who will not be bought or sold, men who in their innermost souls are true and honest men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. We pray for you, Honorable WANJIGI. Mailo, this is the man who will make the youth to register as voters. Okay, Garen Juguna, ask Jimmy, how can one access and join him in the journey towards the Fagia Water vehicle you're steering? Thank you. I think we'll try and give directions on the contacts later. Breezy, hello, kindly ask Honorable WANJIGI why we do not have fast, cheap and reliable internet connectivity throughout the country, and why we have to rely on Safaricom heavily, yet their services are expensive. Okay, Kawira Njagi, the public debt reign started beating us in 2009 when Uhuru became Minister of Finance, with the increase rate at the debt shot from 5.60% to 21.9%. Whether it was culpable or not, I don't know. Kawira, but the point remains, tumeona moto tangu jina lako lihusishwe na pesa za wananchi. Okay, Karanjuguna, Honorable Jimmy WANJIGI can be bought and can be sold. Okay, Kangara, Jimmy is a great asset to any team, in my opinion. Raila lost a real general. MMCTNA, think you're doing the cuts. Asante sana CTNA. Please nifungie simu hapa Ben tafadhali. Bunge limefunga. Kimlanga Tsakong, WANJIGI is our Kenyan deng. Shuchina. So yeah, the Kenyan deng. Grace Kamau, what a statement, WANJIGI. Wow. Okay. Kimlanga Tsakong, our reality that is retrogressive mustn't be accepted just because it's a reality. We can draw our better reality than the one that WANJIGI stands for. I wish we are all the WANJIGIs. Now the gentleman here who is asking, Mungai Paul is saying, General, please, uliza Jimmy, how he can get his half jacket. I think I'm one on a half jacket. And somebody can get a half jacket. I want to make him one ya Safina. Panga will court plus yako. Haya, amesema ndaka ajue mahali utapata jacket yako ya Safina, half jacket. Abbas Njuguna, we are told failure to register SIM cards attracts a fine of amount to 300,000. When and where was the law passed? Yes. Abbas Njuguna, police officers are working on orders from Mr. Above. I'm sure all of them didn't just wake up and decide to take the man. An individual should be personally held responsible for this. Okay, I think I've lost some of the comments there. I want to give you an opportunity to speak to Kenyans. Your last message.
First, let me say thank you very much. It's been a wonderful session, and I'm glad that I had this short time to address Kenyans. Let me say that this is our country. It does not belong to any one individual. This is all our country. And this is a time to take charge. It's a time to say we are fed up of what we have witnessed the last 60 years. It's a time to say we are now going to take power and the reins of this country in our hands. And we're only going to be able to do that when we go and vote, when we are clear about what we are voting for and what the question of this election is. The question of this election is to break from 60 years of injustice, of despair. It is a vote for every single Kenyan, not for a few. And when I say a few, I'm talking about 0.9% who have ruined this nation for their own gains. This is a time to say no more. You vote for Jimmy, you are voting for yourself. And you take control immediately. We are in power. You as Mwananchi, not Jimmy. You as Mwananchi. You shall control your destiny and the destiny of all of us together. This is that time. It's not a time for leaders.
Oh. It is your time. You said it pretty well. That it is your time to take control. It took a moment. It's took a moment to take a generational change, economic change, economic transformation, social transformation, generational change. I mean, namsema ni itweka in all ways. Hata mahali unaishi utahama, utaitweka. Nasema kama unaishi bedsita, utaitweka uende one bedroom. Kama kwani utaitweka uende tu. Hata mimi mheshimiwa nataka kuitweka ni kuwa na station kubwa.
Utakuwa yangu ni gorofa kubwa.
Unaona gorofa hii ni yangu ni ndogo.
Yote itakuwa yako.
Sasa nataka kuitweka. Nataka niitweka nikuwe na
kama unatoa jasho itakuwa yako. Itakuwa yako.
Sasa ningetweka nataka nikuwe na studio kubwa
kabisa
ambayo tunakaa mbele, mambo yanakuwa swari, kuna kahawa inakuja. Itweka moment.
Kabisa. Ndio hii.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's quite an honor having you this morning, and I wish we kept these conversations going. I believe that the reason why we have this show and we have this platform is born out of a belief that the more conversations we have about the things that matter to us, the more change that we can speak into. The things that you keep saying about repeatedly changes the mind of people. Correct. And the people are able to have their destiny in their hands. So actually manifesto yako na yangu inashikana. Sasa ukiniweka nikuwa running mate. Ukiniweka nikuwa running mate tu kama moment.
You're doing a wonderful job. Asante sana.
Yeah, so manifesto yako zungumzia kwangu hapa. You have to continue speaking to Kenyans. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure. We've taken a bit of your time. I hope to see you again on Monday on the Common Sense edition. Until then, this has been the Tackle the 8th of April edition with Mheshimiwa Honorable Jimmy Wanjigi. I hope he's spoken to you and he's spoken to the ambition that you have with this life. And you can make a judgment come 8th August, so is it 9th August, and you make a change. You can etweka or you can choose not to etweka, but you love, like you said, time will judge you. Our time will not judge us wrongly. We have a bigger choice. Let's continue speaking to them and listening to them so that we can make a right decision. Until then, this is me, Joel Bitok, and this is the Tackle, and it ends now. Bye-bye.